In the idyllic communities nestled just north of San Francisco, a sinister darkness has taken hold, one that slithers beneath the fog and penetrates the very soul of the region. For months now, young to middle-aged men have been disappearing without explanation, their bodies, when found at all, bearing the unmistakable signs of a predator's feast. Their cold flesh tells a tale too horrific for the rational mind to comprehend, yet the evidence mounts with each passing night as more men vanish into the abyss. The police, with all their forensic technology and investigative prowess, stand helpless before this growing plague of death, their case files bulging with photographs of vacant-eyed corpses and blood-drained veins, their leads evaporating like morning dew on a tombstone. The authorities speak in hushed tones now, their press conferences growing shorter, their assurances hollower, as the death toll climbs mercilessly in this affluent paradise turned hunting ground. The fog creeps in from the Pacific each evening, wrapping the rolling hills and Victorian homes in a suffocating embrace, perfect cover for something ancient and hungry that moves among the living. Local media has taken to calling it the Marin County Massacre, though massacre implies an end, and this unrelenting harvest of men, shows no signs of abating. Families have stopped allowing their sons, brothers, and husbands to venture out after dark. Businesses close early, the streets empty as twilight approaches. But still, they disappear. Some vanish from locked apartments, others from crowded bars where no one remembers seeing them leave. And those fortunate enough to be found afterward bear the unmistakable signature, twin puncture wounds on their necks, their skin a ghostly alabaster, drained of blood and life. The coroner's office has begun refusing media inquiries, the medical examiners shaking their heads in disbelief at the bodies on their tables, men who appear to have been exsanguinated through wounds too precise, too surgical, to be the work of any human killer. As official channels falter in their quest for answers, a small group of believers gathered in the back room of a decaying Victorian on the outskirts of San Rafael, their faces illuminated by candlelight as they pore over ancient texts and modern police reports. The Northern California Paranormal Investigation Society had been ridiculed for years by locals as eccentric hobbyists chasing shadows, but now their phones ring constantly with terrified calls from residents who have exhausted all rational explanations. The society members' haunted expressions reflect their terrible conclusion: a vampire, not the romanticized creatures of modern fiction, but a merciless predator from humanity's darkest nightmares, has claimed their community as its feeding ground. The evidence aligns too perfectly: the nocturnal killings, the exsanguination, the twin puncture wounds, the surprising strength required to overpower healthy men without a struggle. 3 members, Jacob, a former seminary student with knowledge of occult lore, Marcus, an ex-military man with tactical training, and Ethan, a local historian whose great-grandfather documented similar killings in the area nearly a century ago, volunteered to hunt what no one else will acknowledge exists. Armed with silver, stakes, crucifixes, and fear disguised as courage, they venture into the night, knowing they pursue something that has eluded death for centuries and killed with impunity for months. The trio begins their macabre vigil in the pulsing nightclubs and smoky bars where many victims were last seen, their eyes scanning the crowded rooms for something ancient wearing beautiful human skin. The clubs throb with bass that feels like a dying heartbeat, strobe lights creating disturbing freeze frames of humanity in its most vulnerable state, intoxicated, lustful, oblivious to the predator moving among them. For weeks, they observe, noting patterns that chill their blood, the targeting of athletic men in their prime, the preference for those separated from friends, the strange hypnotic connection established across crowded rooms. Then, at Crimson, a trendy nightclub in Sausalito, they spot her, a woman of such ethereal beauty that men literally part before her like waves breaking against stone. Her porcelain skin seems to absorb and reflect the club's red lights, her movements too fluid, too perfect to be fully human. They watch as she selects her prey, a young tech executive celebrating a promotion. The vampire hunter's warnings to the bartender go unheeded, lost in the thunderous music and the bartender's skeptical laughter. The beautiful stranger and her chosen victim leave together, his friends too inebriated to notice, her arm coiled possessively around his waist. The hunters follow at a distance, but lose them in the fog-shrouded streets. 2 days later, the tech executive's body is discovered in an alleyway behind an abandoned warehouse, his throat bearing the telltale punctures, his eyes wide with remembered terror, his veins collapsed and empty. Driven by renewed determination and primal fear, the three men intensify their hunt, sacrificing sleep and sanity as they track the nocturnal movements of their inhuman quarry. They stake out Crimson nightly, their eyes bloodshot from strain, their nerves frayed to breaking. 1 week later, she returns, moving through the crowd with predatory grace, her black hair cascading over shoulders exposed by a crimson dress that hugs her immortal form. This time, they are prepared. Marcus positions himself as potential prey while Jacob and Ethan maintain visual contact from opposite sides of the club. But she chooses another, a muscular contractor whose friends cheer him on as he approaches her. The hunters follow as the pair leaves, trailing at a cautious distance behind her sleek black sports car as it winds through the misty coastal roads, climbing higher into the hills where ancient redwoods block out moonlight and stars. The road narrows, civilization receding in their rearview mirror, until she turns onto an overgrown driveway nearly hidden by vegetation. At the end stands a Victorian mansion, once grand but now decaying, its windows like vacant eyes staring down at the hunter's car parked at a discreet distance. The beautiful woman and her victim disappear inside. The three men exchange glances filled with terror and resolve, knowing they may never leave these woods alive but unable to turn back without answers. They wait an agonizing hour, their breath fogging the car windows, their weapons, so inadequate against such ancient evil, clutched in white-knuckled hands. No screams pierce the night, no lights flicker in the mansion's windows. When they can bear the tension no longer, they approach the house, wincing at every creaking step on the rotting porch. The front door stands ajar, inviting them into velvet darkness that swallows their flashlight beams. The interior reeks of decay and something metallic, old blood soaked into floorboards and wallpaper over decades of feeding. They move through rooms where cobwebs drip from crystal chandeliers and once elegant furniture rots beneath sheets yellowed with age. In what was once a grand parlor, they discover it, an ornate coffin of ancient wood and tarnished silver, its lid open and interior empty. The silk lining bears the impression of a body, recently vacated. Ethan's flashlight beam reveals hieroglyphics carved into the wood, symbols so old they predate written history. Jacob translates in a whisper, "She who drinks life." A cold dread seizes them as they realize they've found the vampire's lair but lost track of the vampire herself. Marcus suggests retreat, regrouping with better weapons and reinforcements, but before they can move, the temperature in the room plummets, their breath materializing in frozen clouds before their faces. She appears without sound or movement, simply manifesting in the doorway like a nightmare made flesh, her beauty now a terrifying mask that barely conceals the monster beneath. Her victim is nowhere to be seen, his fate written in the fresh crimson staining her perfect lips. "Come to me, my loves," she whispers, her voice both seductive and horrifying, like silk dragged across an open grave. "I will show you a good time." Her body levitates several inches above the rotting floorboards, defying gravity as casually as she defies death itself. The men's weapons, their crosses, stakes, and silver, tremble in their hands, suddenly childish toys against a force that predates Christianity, predates civilization itself. Marcus fires a silver bullet that passes through her as though she was smoke. Jacob thrusts forward his crucifix, but she merely laughs, the sound echoing from walls that have witnessed centuries of similar futile defiance. Ethan begins reciting an ancient banishment ritual from his great-grandfather's journal, his voice cracking with terror. Her smile widens, revealing fangs that gleam like polished ivory in the dim light. "Your ancestor tried those same words in 1926, she says, floating closer. "His bones are dust in my garden now." The flashlights flicker and die. In the abrupt darkness, the men scream, not in pain, but in soul-crushing horror as they witness her true form, the monstrous reality behind the beautiful illusion. Their screams echo briefly through the decaying mansion, then silence falls, heavy and permanent as a cemetery at midnight. The next morning dawns bright and clear, as if to mock the darkness that transpired overnight. When the 3 vampire hunters fail to return to the Paranormal Society's headquarters, their fellow members grow concerned. Calls to mobile phones go unanswered. Visits to homes reveal empty beds. Police reports are filed as hours stretch into days, days into weeks, weeks into months of desperate searching. The authorities investigate the abandoned mansion after anonymous tips, but find nothing except decaying furniture and animal droppings, no coffin, no signs of struggle, no evidence of the 3 missing men or the beautiful woman they pursued. Search parties comb the surrounding woods, cadaver dogs sniff through underbrush, helicopters scan the terrain with infrared sensors. Nothing. The 3 hunters vanish from the earth as completely as if they never existed, their disappearance joining the growing list of unsolved cases that plague the region. Their families erect empty graves with headstones that ask questions the wind cannot answer. The Paranormal Society disbands, its remaining members too frightened to continue, their windows now lined with garlic and crucifixes, their doors locked before sunset. As seasons change and memory fades, the killings continue unabated, methodical, meticulous slaughter that leaves behind bloodless husks where men once stood. Police statistics show a demographic shift as young men flee the area, seeking safety in crowded cities to the south or rural communities to the north. Property values plummet as homes stand vacant, their owners unable to sell to newcomers who have heard the whispered legends of the Marin County vampire. Those who remain take extraordinary precautions. Men travel in groups, wear religious symbols, return home before dark. But still, they disappear. And sometimes, in the small hours between midnight and dawn, residents swear they see a beautiful woman standing beneath street lamps in the fog, her pale skin luminous, her red lips curved in a patient smile. She watches houses where men sleep, her ancient eyes selecting her next feast from behind windows they believe will protect them. Some claim to have seen her accompanied by 3 men with vacant eyes and ghostly pallor, once human puppets who now serve her eternal hunger, luring others to share their fate. The police officially dismiss these sightings as mass hysteria born of fear and grief. Unofficially, even the most hardened detectives avoid night patrols in areas where she has been reported, their rational minds unable to explain the primal terror that seizes them when fog rolls in from the Pacific and darkness claims the land. And in the clubs that still operate, a beautiful woman sometimes appears, selecting the most vital man in the room with eyes that promise pleasure but deliver only oblivion. The disappearances continue, unending, unsolvable, a harvest of blood that will never cease as long as men still breathe and night still falls over the haunted hills north of San Francisco.